designed by the Capitol architect Henry Hapson Richardson. And this is known as one of the most elegant and ornate rooms in the Capitol, just because the main focus, since this was the first completed chamber, was to show New York State's wealth through all the imported materials and all the really elegant European architecture. So if you direct your attention to the arches above you, those are actually made from marble from Siena, Italy. And then the pillars supporting them are made from polished red granite from Scotland. And then the seats you're sitting on are actually red Spanish leather and Caribbean mahogany, and that's all original to the room. Yep. Then the ceilings above are one of the most interesting features of the room, just because they're made from highly polished carved oak, and each square within the ceiling is 4 feet deep. That renders the room acoustically perfect. So when Senate members are speaking on the floor, it's very difficult to have a private conversation in session. So do you see the 2 large fireplaces on the back wall? Oh. Those actually aren't used for heating purposes. One of the interesting aspects of the Capitol is that none of the fireplaces have been used for heating purposes. They're actually used, there's a secret kind of hidden room inside the fireplaces, each one. So if any senator wants to have a private conversation in session, you can take his clerks or anyone else and they go into the fireplace instead of having people hear them while they're in session. And that happens pretty frequently throughout. So, and then you see the chairs down on the floor. Those actually aren't original to the room. There's a plaque with each senator's name carved on each chair, so that after their time in office, they can elect to take the chair home as a memento of their time here. I mean, there's a fee, but everyone pretty much buys their own chair. In terms of what goes on the floor, the largest seat is reserved for the Lieutenant Governor, and that's currently Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy. To his left sits a clerk who takes notes of the proceedings of the minutes, takes notes on the legislature that's occurring. And then to his right sits a clergy person, the choice of whom rotates among the senators so that all faiths can be represented with a prayer beforehand. The next row down is for the Secretary of the Senate and their staff. And then the sort of school-looking desks with the inkwells, those are also original to the room, are reserved for the media and photographers of the press. And then when you get down to the actual floor, there's 62 Senate seats representing an equal number of districts in New York State. Right now the Republicans hold a slight 2-seat majority, so they sit to the right-hand side of the center dividing aisle, and Democrats sit to the left. And then the binders and papers you see on the desks are bills that are going to undergo review today. Legislation can originate in either the Senate or the Assembly, and once it's passed with the majority, it goes on to the governor. If he signs it, it's enacted into law. However, if he vetoes it, it goes back to the House of Origin, and then they have to pass it by a 2/3 vote in each house for it to become law. Does anyone have any questions on the proceedings or the architecture or any staircase, or better known as the $1 million staircase, because it actually cost over $1.5 million to create, with over 14 years of construction just for this one staircase. It was constructed with sandstone also from Scotland, except this sandstone is unique in that you can carve it in any direction. You don't have to go with the grain for other materials, which allow for the extremely complex carvings you see on the banisters and throughout the entire thing. One of the most notable features is actually the skylight. The skylight wasn't unveiled until 2002. It had been closed off to the public since the 1940s due to air raid threats in World War II. So it was actually unveiled upon renovation. So just below that, you can see the faces there. Those are the 33 governors who were in office during construction and before the construction of the building began. And those are all along the rim of the skylight. And then the other notable feature that the staircase is known for are the 77 famous faces. And those you can see across are the 2 faces right above the banisters. There are 77 faces that have famous politicians from the day, famous generals, poets, writers, artists, all with their names carved underneath them. And then to finish up the carvings for the notable features are the 1,000 Capitol unknowns. At the time, there were 600 master stone carvers who were brought in from Italy to complete the work, and they were paid for $5 per day for 10 hours of work. So in order to make extra money on the side, people who were working in the building at the time would come up to them and request that their own faces be carved into the staircase and pay them extra money to do that. So they would kind of secretly carve in different people's faces among the vines and the other features. So while they aren't labeled, these people became sort of immortalized in the staircase as well. And there's 1,000, just about 1,000 specific areas they designed. So this particular architect shows a combination of Moorish and Gothic techniques, sort of like heavy castle feeling to it. You can see that the process of voting on legislature is a lot more modernized in this chamber than in the Senate. These boards on either side in the middle have a description of the bill and then the title, and then the corresponding color of the vote appears next to each assembly person's name. And they all have boxes on their desks with green for yes, red for no, and orange for abstain. In terms of his office floor, there's 150 assembly members representing the equal number of districts. And right now the Democrats hold a pretty big majority of the room. They have a 48-seat majority, and they've controlled it since probably around 1975. Unlike the Senate chamber, they don't sit by dividing aisle, they're intermingled by district. And the Speaker, Senator Sheldon Silver, presides over the full legislature in this room. In terms of architecture, one of the most interesting features of this room is actually the ceiling. While it does look a little mundane, it's actually the third ceiling to be in use in this room. There used to be a vaulted stone archway that vaulted 30 feet over the present chamber. However, 10 years after the room began to be put into use, it started to crack from 1920. It was painted by William de Lesage. So it was a fairly more recent renovation added. This was originally supposed to be the site of a 40-foot rotunda, so the floor was actually supposed to be 40 feet lower than this. So the perspective of some of the figures is messed up. You can kind of see the kind of distorted since the ceiling is meant to be viewed from a lower point. And this was also supposed to be the site of a tower that was supposed to go over the entire Capitol building. This is only one of the only state capitals that doesn't have a dome that goes over the entire building. But once Roosevelt was elected, he kind of mixed construction on that. And there's various setups that go throughout here. So right now they have the African American experience in New York State for African American History Month. But there's a series of displays that rotate throughout here. And this is where visitors for the governor or for anyone in the governor's offices are just told to wait until the reception is ready for them, and then they'll be guided through artifacts of the past alongside current legislation and kind of get an idea of New York State history that way. So he collected all the known portraits of governors of New York State. A lot of them are in different private collections or just kind of lost. So they're all collected and restored and then installed in this hallway with exam quality lighting. And then underneath, in chronological order, is a series of events that took place in New York State during that governor's time in office, just notable events there.